This podcast is brought to you by sarahraven.com, which is home to everything you need for a truly beautiful and productive garden. You'll also find great and essential gardening kit and stylish, lovely things to have in your house to bring the outside indoors, all inspired by the garden and the house being tied together. There's also plenty of garden inspiration, how-to videos and specialist growing guides. So head over to sarahraven.com today to discover even more. Welcome to Grow, Cook, Eat, Arrange, the podcast of me, Sarah Raven, and today the lovely Arthur Parkinson, my original co-host. And we thought we would chat today about the thing that has become unbelievably trendy, ever more so actually, which is pressing flowers, because Arthur has been doing this way before it was trendy. I remember when I first met him when he was 17 or 18, and now I can tell you he's in his early 30s. He might not thank me for saying that, but he gave me a pressed flower card, and he also did collages, applique things of cutting out flower pictures from catalogues and magazines and making them into beautiful cards, and then things like lampshades and stuff. So beautiful. Welcome, Arthur. It's lovely to have you back.
Hi, Sarah. Lovely to be here.
So, yeah, because Arthur is one of the originators, we just thought, not that he's taking a claim, but it might be really nice to get him to chat about how you do it, what are the best things, what works, what doesn't work, all that kind of stuff, because it is just it's really rewarding, and as craft is rising and rising and rising, and homegrown things are so fashionable, it's very sustainable, it's got all the sort of good things to it. So Arthur, tell us first of all how you got into it.
I think it's just, what amazes me is when you think back to when people like your dad were botanising and we didn't have the iPhone and we couldn't Google things. If we didn't preserve flowers by pressing them, they would have forgot. And, you have to think, when we were first discovering all these beautiful islands and tropical places, they were having to press everything, weren't they?
Totally.
And then they'd have to sail back and present kings and queens, not with vases of flowers, but they would have been pressed flowers to show them, because they wouldn't have survived the long journeys. So I think I first saw beautiful pressed flowers probably when I was at Kew. Yeah. But they were locked away, quite understandably, there's a whole palace at Kew Gardens and various institutions of just pressed flowers, isn't there?
My dad used to send his pressings to get them identified, basically. Yeah.
So that's when I first saw them. And I don't know what made me start pressing, but I think it's about pressing beautiful things for me. I'm not pressing everything. Yeah. And it's quite funny. Flower presses I often pick up in charity shops. Yeah. And bless them, often you'll open an old flower press and out will tumble a load of the previous owner's pressed flowers. I'm yet to actually keep anything that I've found in one. Yeah. Because without sounding really horrible and snobbish, they're never that amazing. So I just like pressing faces and characters from the garden.
Not brown blobs.
And we were talking before we started about how things do lose colour. So I've really made pressing flowers a religion, particularly over the summer months. And then in the winter time, I will make my cards and things like that when I've got nothing else to do in the garden. Or if I just need a long bit of therapy on a long winter's night when, time's on your side, and it's something you can do inside, in the middle of the night. That's what I like about it. It's like getting the garden out from your flower press. And
that's such a lovely vision. Yeah. So you're tapping into the beauty, almost like a sort of stock cube of your garden.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think what I can't stand is people giving things without meaning. I live in part of the world where people often like to give people candles. Yeah. And I find that so soulless. So I'd much rather give somebody a pressed flower or a box of eggs or something that is meaningful. If I really like somebody, that's what you'll get from me. But you need to press a lot. I think that's the thing. So that's why I like a lot of cut and come again things, particularly the violas, which are the easiest thing to press. So I might as well focus on them. If you've never pressed anything before, you will get a very nice reward from pressing 15 violas. And that's how many you need to press to get at least 3 that are perfect, to be honest.
Yes, yeah, that's good ratio.
Often the rest I will chuck away because you press them all perfectly. And to get that perfect outline, only 3 or 5 from that dozen might be perfect. So that's what I'd say to people, press a lot more than you think you need.
Yeah, very good. And does anything keep its colour or really does everything pretty much lose its colour? I mean, I've heard buttercups keep it longer than other things, but...
Yeah, you're probably right. I'd imagine yellow is a pigment that probably does keep. Viola Tiger Eye Yellow I really like, which is yellow like a buttercup. But to be honest, I find if it's in a light place within a year, it does lose the colour. So what I do, I just take it out of the frame and I'll just put a new flower on top of the old one. So I'm literally looking at one now and I know for a fact that's got at least 4 other flowers behind the present one I'm looking at.
Wow, that's so interesting. So you
Because otherwise it would just look like old granny knickers, to be honest.
Yeah. And you don't even have to remove the old one. You can
No, because it's so, it's literally thinner than tracing paper could ever dream of being. I mean, I'm lucky I've got nimble fingers. If I had big sausage fingers, I'd probably have to have a whole jam jar of tweezers and various little scalpels to help me get them off the press. But while my fingers are still quite nimble, and having long nails helps as well, I just literally prise them off very carefully and flip them on the right side. So my flower pressers, unsurprisingly, because I'm so chaotic, all the little nuts and bolts I very quickly lose and get impatient with. So I'm not sat there tightening them all up. So my flower pressers live in the middle of piles of books to give them extra weight. And the vital thing is the blotting paper. So do get the blotting paper or parchment paper or anything that's like crafty, sandy paper. That's quite good.
It's got to have a bit of give.
Yeah, they've got to have a wick to absorb the moisture, and it gets harder the more fleshy the flower is. So, I remember when I first started, I did snowdrops one year. They're very hard to press because actually a snowdrop's quite fleshy. It's got that little green pendulum that really needs a lot of time to dry out. And the thing about snowdrops, and it's not true with all white flowers because Cosmos Purity dries really nicely, I find snowdrops often get a tinge of brown. So I don't tend to do snowdrops anymore. I remember being really disappointed. So I don't press anything that I get disappointed by. But this year I'm looking forward to trying to press passion flowers, which I know is going to be a big challenge.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So we'll see how they go.
Because I've tried pressing things like calendulas, but I find when I remove them from the paper, so many of the petals get left behind.
Really,
because they're sort of thready, feathery sort of petals. I find them really, really difficult to do well.
Yeah, I can imagine. Whereas a cosmos is more, 9 or maybe a dozen petals, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's easier for the whole thing if you get the blotting paper out the press and you kind of bend the paper in the middle to kind of ping it out.
Ping it out, yeah. And then how long do you leave them?
Violas, I tend to have them ready in 2 to 3 weeks. But other things, I think a month. I think if you can give everything a month, that's good.
Okay.
People have different opinions about whether you should look or not. I don't like to look because I find if they're not fully dry, you ruin a whole press.
Yeah.
But with some things that are fleshy, say if you wanted to press a parrot tulip, that does need to be aired every couple of days. I've not done tulips for that reason. That I'm too, it's too much time for me to be looking. But if you've got time, I think if you can be delicate and air them, which is where you just open the press and let air in so that the mould doesn't, it's about stopping the mould, I think.
Wow, that sounds a bit of a palaver.
Yeah. I mean, when we first started doing the podcast, I remember we interviewed Melissa from Jam Jar Flowers. And I'm sure listeners should go back and find that episode because they are the ones that made it the modern trend. I mean, they do all kinds of venues now at press flowers and they know a lot more than me and take it much more seriously because it's their livelihood.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think poppies, the Shirley poppies, they press beautifully.
Yeah.
Because, a Shirley poppy, its petals are like tracing paper. So there's not much moisture in there. So Amazing Grey and Pandora, these lovely new varieties, they look beautiful. But what I would really say to people is please don't just focus on the flower. So a viola to me, just the head of a viola without the foliage or a stem, almost looks quite strange, alien-like. So press foliage too.
Yeah,
Even
really
if
important.
the foliage isn't attached to that flower, you can then collage it back into a plant when you've got it on the card.
Yeah.
And it just looks much more alive and jollier with more animation to it with the foliage.
It's really true. I think the beheaded flowers just don't have
Yeah, they just don't look, Like I love doing the violas as just one per card, because then you put them all together and it almost looks like they're dancing or, like they're maids at a dance or sisters or, it's almost, because I sell them at Christmas time. We tend to do stalls and things. And I always think, I don't want them to be separated because they look so nice together. You get attached to them because the amount you have to chuck away, to be honest, is a lot more than you think. So to get those perfect ones to sell, it's,
And so then after a month, you have a look, and then do you store them somewhere until the winter when you're going to make them up?
Yeah, I'm becoming that quite worrying kind of old person who wants to save all little lovely boxes and tins. And so I'm always saving because I think, that's a nice matchbox that could be used to keep them in.
Yeah.
But you have to keep them dry, keep them somewhere warm.
Yeah.
Don't put them in the garage or like an outhouse or an office that's got heat. Yeah. It's amazing actually how the damp will ruin them. So again, don't pick your flowers on a damp April day. Wait until it's warm summer days to press them, because the slightest bit of damp will ruin what you've got.
And then what do you use to stick them onto the card or the paper?
Just PVA glue. The professional glue is one called Mod Podge.
Hodgepodge, isn't it?
Hodgepodge, isn't it? Yeah. Which hasn't got any toxins in and is very, if you get it all over your fingers, you can just wash it off straight away. But literally, again, because I'm nimble-fingered, I don't even tend to use a brush. I just tend to use the tip of my finger, and I'll have the little bit of glue on its lid, tiny bit in the lid, and I'll dab my finger and then dab it onto the viola or whatever, and then slap it onto the card. And I don't, I either use black card because I find that really brings out the vibrancy of a lot of flowers. But I do find black can look a bit funereal, so I've started to use white card now. And what I think makes it look nice, if you can get some thinner card and just rip it in a square and then glue that square onto the thicker card, it makes it just look a bit more 3D. And a bit more like you've given it a bit of effort.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Almost like a sort of vellum type.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fabulous. So, I think it's just such a lovely thing to have a go with. And you don't have to get a flower press, as Arthur says. Get some blotting paper from an art shop, put it in a heavy book and just start from there and see whether you enjoy it. But certainly 2 or 3 people I work with, it's their alternative to sewing or embroidery or knitting or whatever, going through the process of pressing the flowers and then making them into pictures, lampshades. A really beautiful thing that some people seem to have are those frames that are glass both front and back.
Yes.
So you get you can put them on a window and it really becomes luminous. They work incredibly well in that. And of course, leaves, just as Arthur says, as well as flowers, are often, as beautiful. And in June, which is poppy time, but also geums. You've done geums too, haven't you, Arthur?
Geums. Nasturtiums actually are very nice too. And unlike a deep, like a red pansy, nasturtiums tend to keep their vibrancy. So that's what I would say. If you're pressing things that are red, you'll have to do a bit of experimenting, because quite often the red flowers do end up just going brown.
Yeah, and they leave their pigment sometimes on the paper, don't they? And also, just as Arthur mentioned, Jam Jar and Melissa Richardson have written a fantastic book about this if you want to get into it more, the history as well as the techniques. And I'm sitting behind me, I've got a really beautiful, huge screen of Jam Jar pressed flowers. And the thing that I find works with them, this is quite a big piece, but is where you're really thinking about shape much more than colour. So in the one behind me here, I've got a clematis and an anemone and a thalictrum, and they're sort of combined in a way that's all about the shape. It's very Japanese, like a sort of screen. So think about the stem and the seed head and everything more than, in a way, you want to put on black and white glasses when you're picking, because in a sense, that's what you're looking for. It's really form rather than colour. But yeah, have a go. And it's certainly something, as I move to retirement, I'm going to be doing a lot more of.
Oh, that's exciting.
Thank you, Arthur, and see you soon.
See you soon, Sarah.
Thanks so much for listening to Grow Cookie to Range with me, Sarah Raven, and Arthur Parkinson. Wasn't it lovely to have him back? Next week, he's here again, which is so nice for me, chatting to Arthur, and we're going to talk about everlasting, so seed heads and flowers that really are there to decorate your house and make it look beautiful even through the winter months. So join us then. You can find more information, photos and advice sheets on all the plants and recipes we talk about on this podcast by heading to the show notes or at sarahraven.com/podcast.